So this past week, since we have been with you, you went like caveman primal.
Did I
Do
really?
you remember? Do you know, or do you know what I'm referring to?
No.
No. We had an unexpected visitor last weekend.
Oh, that's
Oh my
we did
gosh.
have an unexpected and unwelcome visitor in the house last
Yes.
weekend.
Yes. So our daughter, I hear this little squeal and I'm like, was that our daughter or was that the dog? Because I literally couldn't tell. And so our daughter comes up the stairs. Her bedroom's in the lower level. We've got to walk out. And she comes upstairs and she's like, there's something in the basement. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, is it a mouse? She's like, no. I'm like, well, what is it? She's like, I don't know. It's about this big.
And it looks like a pug.
And it looks like a pug. I forgot about that. Yes.
It was not a pug, unfortunately.
She was hoping it was a pug. She would have taken that pug.
Oh,
Yeah. So she let us know that it had scurried behind the sectional downstairs. And so we start blocking this part, the top of the sectional and the one side. And you finally get the flashlight in there and it's hiding. And I look at its face. I'm like, oh, I said, it's a beaver or it's a woodchuck. I couldn't tell.
it was a woodchuck.
It was a woodchuck. And how much wood can a woodchuck chuck when a woodchuck's in your basement?
None, fortunately. But then we had to scheme how we're going to get this thing out from behind the sofa and outside.
Yes.
Which we did accomplish.
Yes. But it did require Eric really, it started to go over one of the barriers and he just barreled at it, berserking with a shield, garbage can lid shield.
Yep.
And it scurried back and into the garbage can, which is where we wanted it. And Eric sealed it up and let it go. It was not dinner that night.
No.
Oh,
I did have to shout at it a little bit.
Yes, you did. And it worked. It worked well. So I'm JJ. I am a life coach and I eat mostly meat, but not woodchuck.
I'm Eric. I'm a novelist. I eat mostly meat and still no woodchuck.
No woodchuck.
Pretty fuzzy. I wouldn't want to eat it.
It was pretty cute. It looked pretty healthy too, I must say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one of our adventures here, living out sort of in a rural area. Now, we have had possum in our house before.
Yes. The other house.
We had a dog, our older dog, Lucky. He would carry possum into the house sometimes, but we've never had a woodchuck until now.
Keep talking.
Well, I sort of ran out of that story. I know what I can talk about. So this morning I woke up and saw that Kiltz had a new video, which is not unusual because, you know, he goes live almost every morning. And, but this one was an interview with our friend Jenny Middich. And yeah, and it was a phenomenal interview. I really enjoyed it. It was a little less than an hour long, so not too long. And it was just an amazing conversation. Jenny was interviewing Dr. Kiltz, and we just heard a little more about his philosophies and his background story. It was a very grounded, nice, informative interview. So if you haven't seen that, I really highly recommend you check it out. I messaged Jenny and told her it was just great. So yeah, excited.
I haven't seen that one.
No, it's a really good one. I think you'd appreciate it. Yeah.
So we're going to have Charlie on here momentarily. Go ahead and click in, Charlie, if you can try that link out. It should work.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Sue's with us today.
Yeah. Marla's here.
Hey,
says,
Marla.
Good evening. Darth Carnivore is here. That's Charlie, who we're talking to. And Sue, who was asleep last week when we mentioned her, has made it. Sue says, I was just watching that Kiltz interview, but didn't finish because you are live.
Right. That'll wait.
That is the correct priority. And that's what I like to see.
Yeah, but it's a good one.
Jody's here, says, good evening.
Good evening, Jody. Hello.
I have been solving my high blood sugar problem.
And mine was starting to correct, but you go.
The short version is something like this. If you want to avoid gluconeogenesis, don't eat protein.
But wait, what do you mean?
Well, you have to eat protein. So you're going to have to eat some, but it really seems like the timing is one of the techniques to use if you're concerned about this. If you're not, then don't worry about it. But I've gotten my nighttime blood sugar back in check. This morning, my morning blood sugar was in the 80s. Ketones were over 1, so that was all positive.
Mm-hmm.
It says you're signed in, huh?
Yeah.
Well, JJ's going to entertain you while I figure out what's going on.
Well, so I've told you, I've reported this summer that my blood sugar was starting to trend down. So that's great. However, I had sacrificed ketosis this summer as I worked on getting all that probiotic yogurt in, the SIBO Dr. Davis yogurts. So I'd sacrificed, my eating window was longer and I was eating more yogurt. So ketosis just wasn't my focus this summer, or fasting. And that's generally how I got into a deeper ketosis, was if I did some fasting. Well, I did do a 24-hour fast last week, so that was fun. I liked dipping into that. But regardless of the fast, this whole scheme that Eric came up with, that's built kind of on, the shoulders of other carnivores and keto doctors, is that I'm eating my protein, my biggest meal, early in the day, and that's where I'm getting the bulk of my protein. I might have a smaller dose of protein either at lunch or with my dinner, and then I'm eating a lot of fat for dinner with very minimal protein. I eat about, when I do have meat with my dinner, it's about 2 ounces. Otherwise, it's pure fat. And that is getting me into amazing ketosis. Overnight, I wake up in the morning and my blood sugars have ranged from about 78 to 95 for my fasting morning glucose. And my ketones have been over 1. They've been 1 to 1.5-ish every morning. Consistent. And I can just feel I'm back into ketosis too, because I just have a lot more calm, a lot more focus, a lot more energy. And so I just think you did a great job figuring that out. Like, I'm just so thrilled. I'm so thrilled. And to not have to do, not that I won't fast, because I will still do that, but to not have to fast to get into just a deep ketosis for a few days, to have it consistently is amazing. Now, who knows? Body could adapt. 3 weeks from now, I could be telling you the ketosis is gone. I don't know. But the gluconeogenesis piece was a huge part of that, because we have high fat carnivores. And I tried that. It didn't seem to do a lot for me. It was fine. But the key was I was eating a lot of protein and a lot of fat. And no, the real key for me is to lower that protein and up the fat, to do both, so that I'm not overeating, basically.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting now is a beautiful rise in blood sugar during the day, and then it tapers off in the evening and it goes really low overnight. What I assume is a perfect kind of a cyclical situation. And that's all just super high fat for dinner and an early dinner.
And yes, that's true too. Early dinner.
So Charlie is here. He's made it.
Yay.
And we're going to bring him on. There he is.
Hey. Oh my gosh. You look amazing.
Thanks.
Why are you so surprised? Of course he does.
No, you looked great the last time we talked to you, but there's been a big change even since then. Holy cow.
Oh, it's probably just getting out in the sun more, because last time we met, it was really cold. So.
Well, I don't remember. I mean, it's been some months since we talked to you.
Yeah.
And you look like you have changed since then, besides just getting a tan.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been an interesting adventure since the last time I was on your channel. So for folks in the chat, we met in January at a Healing Humanity meetup in Chicago. And at that point, I was just beginning to expand with like a carnivore cut, kind of tapering my calories down and all that stuff. So, and I concluded it around my birthday in early May. And at that point, I had lost 25, 30 pounds. So I got down to 204, which is just over half my body weight at my heaviest, right?
Wow.
I stayed there for a few weeks, but then over the summer, basically, I kind of steadily gained weight. So I'm at 220, but it's interesting though, because if I were just to look at the scale weight, I would have thought, okay, I must have messed up somehow. Because I was just getting out, doing like a reverse diet, essentially, kind of slowly backing out of the cut. So there was some weight to be gained expected, but I wasn't expecting 220. And it made me realize, when I looked at other things besides the scale weight, just to kind of give me some clues as to what's happening. That's when I got like my testosterone result, that it actually increased to over 1,500 nanograms per deciliter. The HSCRP was almost, or basically undetectable, said below 0.15 milligrams per liter or something. And I just noticed I had more energy, even though I went from like 204 to 220, essentially, over the course of the summer. And I gained muscle mass. So like I can measure my calves and my legs and my chest and stuff like that, and say like, okay, I gained inches there, but my waist stayed the same, my neck stayed the same. So my work pants, my size 32 work pants still fit the same, even though I'm at a higher weight. So I'm like, okay, this is kind of trippy, because I'm so used to the scale going down, but it's going up, but I'm not disappointed. My physique is definitely changing. And so it's like, I have a brand new body, and I'm trying to learn to get, how to get used to it, So, so it made me realize that, okay, well, maybe, I don't know. So I had to question my original intention behind getting down to 204, just so I can say I got, lost half my body weight. But I wasn't sure what else would happen then. It's kind of like, you chase a car, you're like a dog chasing the car, you finally get it. Now what do you do with it, right? So,
Yep.
but it's made me realize that, okay, well, maybe the scale is one point of feedback, but it is not the only point of feedback, because I'm like, well, I don't know. I'd rather have this higher testosterone and everything else, rather than, lose, get a certain scale weight. So it's taken some mental getting used to, because, I'm like, I've been on point with my version of the carnivore diet. I haven't had excursions or anything. So it's just been really interesting getting used to this, new body. So.
Do you ever catch yourself in a reflection and go, wait, that's me?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, especially when I look at, some of my, old pictures, even just from like a year ago, I'm like, wow, okay, that looks a lot different. And then also, since, over the summer, I've kind of, gained some confidence in my body, to the point where I walk around shirtless when I walk the dog and, mow the lawns. I get the vitamin D, right? Because I tan really easily. It kind of obscures some of the stretch marks, from losing, almost 200 pounds. And I just have a lot more confidence, so now I'm, trying to get a YouTube, or I have a YouTube channel, I guess, but I'm trying to get videos uploaded onto there. So I'm still kind of learning about it. I mean, Chat GPT has been really helpful and
Mm-hmm.
helping me figure out some of this stuff. And I've just, hopefully next week I'll launch my first set of videos. So I'm trying to make it so when I first launch it, I have a few videos and a couple in the queue. So I'm always ahead, just in case I need to, travel somewhere and whatnot. So.
Yeah, we know how that works.
Yeah.
Although we are not usually ahead.
No, we're never ahead. We're always late.
Yeah.
So everyone who's watching now and on the replay should find Darth Carnivore on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell, every possible thing you can do with the channel. And so when he launches the first video, it'll come up on your feed and we can all watch it and support Charlie in his new venture.
Yeah, thank you.
He's been an enormously great supporter of our channel, showed up here in the lives most Fridays and usually has something pithy to say, which I enjoy greatly because I can't provide all the humor.
No. Go figure.
Some people would say I don't provide any of the humor. So just for everybody who's watching, could you just talk about what is your version of carnivore? What are you eating? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I don't know how many videos of this type I'll launch, but there's a lot of meals on repeat, and my basic one meal a day is usually some reheated ground beef patties. So I batch cook on the Blackstone griddle every weekend, I guess, for the week ahead. I've had like a dozen eggs lately. So a coworker of mine raises chicken and she sells it for really cheap. So I've been getting my chicken eggs from her. And then some air fried beef fat trimming. So from my local butcher, they sell it, on the cheap. So I just keep it, I cube it, keep it frozen, and then just put it in the air fryer whenever I'm ready for it. So that tends to be my base meal most of the time. Every once in a while, if a sale is good on steak, I'll get steak. Fried chicken skin in tallow. Beef short ribs tend to be things I occasionally splurge on, but for the most part, it's ground beef, eggs, and beef fat trimmings. It's and that tops out to around, I don't know, 3 pounds of food at 3,000 calories or 3,500 calories a day. And then that powers me throughout the day. I don't need anything else. And I'm doing, I get about 20,000 steps a day. And then, about, between 20 and 60 minutes of actual intense exercise. But most of the time it's just, walking, moving around, that kind of stuff. So I tend to kind of showcase some of that eventually, like some of the workouts that I do, in case people want to see that, because I don't see too much of that. I see a lot of like what I eat in a day type of stuff. So I thought maybe I could mix it up.
How do you get 20,000 steps?
Yeah, it's kind of insane. So I think I've been getting that for the most part, but I didn't know that like when I do the push mowing, for my lawn and stuff, or cycling, like a cycling class or something like that, it like counts none of those steps whatsoever. So the whole summer I've been undercounting the entire time. And once I figured out that, okay, I can take my, watch, take it off my wrist, just tuck it into my sock, at the ankle part, and then it accurately counts my stuff. And I was like, oh yeah. So I've been like, mowing my lawn 2-3 times a week, sometimes depending on, the weather, and, spin class gets me, 5,000-6,000 steps easily. So it adds up. So, I just figured this out like last week.
Okay.
I was undercounting the entire summer.
Now, what did your activity level look like when you were twice your weight?
No, almost non-existent. I definitely had low energy, fatigue. When I look at the few pictures that I had during this time, because when you're heavy, it's not like you want to go out and take a bunch of selfies or anything. Most of them were with my daughter, who was a toddler at the time, so I just happened to be in that picture. And unless it was like a family picture or something like that, I wouldn't take a picture. So I realized I spent a lot of my time on a couch, chair, or the bed during, for my waking hours. I mean, that's how low energy I was. I mean, it felt like I had to rely on willpower just to get up and, do basic, things. So, so I don't have very much in the way of photos of that era, but, during that decade of weight regain, it was kind of humbling to realize, yeah, there was, less, over time, there was less of me out in public, doing things I like to do, and more of me staying inside. And I kind of realized, at the time I was really insecure about my weight, but, that's not, I didn't want to say the quiet part out loud. So, if someone asked me, "Hey, you want to go somewhere?" It's like, no, I don't, it's not my cup of tea. I think I'm just going to stay inside. I kind of stretched the meaning of what introverted and, what my introversion meant. I just thought it meant to stay home, but, that's not it at all. So now, I don't fear going outside or anything else. I like going out in public, hanging out with friends and whatnot. So it's good. So usually just because, getting ready to go to a birthday party this weekend, these friends haven't seen me since, like 5, 6 years ago. So they'll be a big surprise because, I also don't do social media. So outside of my YouTube channel next week. So they are in for a big surprise.
They'll be like, "Where's Charlie? Who's this?"
What are you doing?
So when you talked about what you have one meal a day, and it's very much the same thing on repeat, you said,
Yeah.
but it doesn't seem to bother you.
No, and I plan to go into some detail, behind some of my thoughts, behind what I eat, because, there's an emotional aspect as well, but there's just a lot of trust in what the food's going to do for me. And this has been borne out by, everyday results that, not only, our eggs and beef and, healthy foods, but they power me throughout the day. Whereas, before eating, pre-carnivore, I knew that the food would be hyper palatable, but then it would also reliably, cause me to have, less energy throughout the day.
Yeah.
Going through the blood roller coaster, brain fog, and all that would, reliably come back. And, it's about learning to love the foods that love you back instead of, trying to love the foods that don't love you back is, I don't know, kind of the way I think of it now. So so there's a lot of joy that comes from knowing that my food is going to do my body, well, as borne out by my everyday experience and, periodic, lab results and other health improvements. So I don't know. So there's just a lot to say about, some of the emotions that go into deciding what to eat. So
Now, you said you have a birthday party coming up.
yeah, it's
going to
not
a birthday
mine. It's for a friends and their daughters, basically. So, but yeah, they haven't seen me in a while, yeah, they'll be surprised.
Now, do you have any strategy around that, or is it just like, I'm gonna eat my one meal when I get home, or what are you doing around it?
Yeah, I'll probably eat my one meal before I go, so that way, I'm able to, um, be conversant and everything. I've already got my meal taken out, um, and I can really focus on, catching up with them, enjoying their kids that they're much older now too. So, which is the real point of the event. So, I've had to kind of reframe my approach to social gatherings. Whereas, before I used to think, well, what kind of food are they going to have, and not, think about much else. But now it's kind of the inverse. I'm thinking, this is a social occasion. I haven't seen these people in a while. We've been good friends for a long time, and want to get to know their more grown kids a little bit better. And food is kind of an afterthought. So
Food is an afterthought. Imagine that.
Well, I can imagine that now, but
Yeah, now.
there was a time where the kid's birthday party would have been just about the food and the cake for me. And that's the only reason I would have gone, because I don't like kids.
Yeah, before, I would have thought, hey, I've been really good. I deserve this cake. And
Yes.
then I'll just fast the next day and try to exercise it off and then repeat the cycle. So that used to be my mentality the first time I lost a bunch of weight on keto. And I did it for almost 2 years while losing, 150 pounds. But over time, it's kind of like, how, waves on the ocean, it'll eventually make even a sharp rock, dull. That's kind of the same thing, when you have to exercise willpower that many times over that period, eventually it gives way. So now I don't exercise any willpower whatsoever, it seems like, just because. I
It's
mean, initially when it was hard, I had to use a lot of willpower, but the longer I've gone without, these cheat meals, so to speak, the easier it's gotten to avoid it, to the point where, when I'm preparing my daughter's lunch and, my hands are going through, the Cheez-It crackers, none of it goes into my mouth. I mean, it all goes into her little bento box. And I can walk past the bakery. I can even go into some of these, fast food joints, and none of it triggers me. And that just feels like a superpower compared to, where I was before, especially, where foods, cheap foods are readily available. You can't even go to Home Depot or Lowe's without, the temptation to, buy candy or a big gulp or anything. But, now I can confidently go into those places. I could even touch it and it's not going into my mouth. So,
Yep. Yeah. I have a family birthday party tomorrow as well. And one of my family members says, "Oh, you're just so disciplined." And I'm like, I don't explain it, but I'm
right.
like, yeah, no, it's not that.
no.
It's not that at all. And I don't want to feel like garbage for several days.
Yeah, when you redefine what food is, and then you just recognize that's not food, that's poison. And it does exactly what you said. The more palatable it is, the worse it makes you feel.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's almost like a fairy tale danger. If it's too alluring, it's going to have negative effects, right?
It's Hansel and Gretel.
It is Hansel and Gretel. It's a house you can eat. And you get thrown in the oven.
Yep.
Yeah, I just know to avoid those things. And something I plan to kind of feature on my channel too is there's only one other person in this house. Well, not really a person, but my dog does carnivore with me. She's done it for the last 2 years. So, we used to buy her some really expensive kibble, top brand kibble and stuff like that. But then once we switched over to carnivore, she never ate that kibble again. We had to throw it away because it expired. So she's never gone back since. And, it's kind of interesting some of her food choices, but, she likes, so when I batch cook, I also batch cook for her. She has her own separate bowl for, her beef patties.
Well, that's good.
Mine. When my wife has to feed the dog, she has to call me sometimes and be like, "Hey, which container is your meat and which container is the dog's meat?" So,
have you noticed an improvement in the dog's behavior or health or attitude or?
I mean, she gets good remarks from the veterinarian when we do her annual checkup for, vaccines and stuff. And she's a healthy weight. She used to be the runt of her litter, so she's kind of gone in the opposite direction of me, where she's, gained weight. And by gained weight, I mean she went from like 21 pounds to 25 pounds, for a mini golden doodle. And her fur looks good. She's healthy according to all the blood tests that they do at the veterinarian's office. And they said, keep doing what you're doing. Of course, the veterinarian, she's like, well, my only concern about, the meat diet is, high protein and kidney functions and all that stuff, very similar to that concern for, people. But yeah, she, the reason why she has like slightly different hamburgers than I do is mine tend to be fattier and hers tend to be leaner. So I think I read somewhere that dogs don't need as much fat because they don't have as big of brains.
Yep.
So
yeah, I've read that too. Agreed.
yeah.
Well, and if you think about what a pack of dogs would eat, I mean, they would be a pack and they would have a carcass that they would be sharing. And, the fat would go pretty quick, I would think. But there's a lot of muscle available.
Yeah.
And they would be able to run on that easily.
Yeah, I think my dog Maya, she feels like a natural mini golden doodle in the wild, so
Yeah.
just like Mother Nature intended.
Every dog thinks it's a wolf, right?
Exactly.
Oh, that's funny.
Now, your family, you said you and the dog are the only carnivores, and how is your family reacting to that still? I mean,
Well, we all eat kind of differently. My wife does her own thing, which is, like a lot of, salad and chicken, typical things that people think of as healthy eating, so to speak. Then my daughter eats a lot of standard kid stuff. I mean, I have some influence. My battle with her is just trying to get meat included in the menu somewhere, for
Yes.
protein and stuff, because as she's going through the early stages of puberty herself, I'm like, all your hormones, they're made out of, cholesterol and fat. And, I don't know that milk is going to be enough to supply that for you. So I try to get in, some hamburgers. Occasionally she'll be okay with like meatballs and stuff. So I'll try to get, the best quality meatball I can get or make it myself and, feed it to her that way. I have some indirect influence.
Yep.
Where, she's not eating cereal, she's not eating drinking soda and stuff like that. So it's some subcategory of junk food that she's not having, but she still has plenty of typical kid food. I mean, the only thing I can say is she's never had a cavity in her life, so I can, take part in that. So
Well, getting her some, high density nutrient food is sounds great. Sounds great.
Yeah.
And much better than many of us were raised up
Yeah.
on. Yes. Oh, and would you consider then your do you know what your macro percentage is roughly with fat?
Yeah, so it tends to be like 82% fat, and then 18%, or is it 17 or 18% protein, and then the rest is just incidental from the eggs, like carbs.
Yep.
There's like, half a gram of carb per egg. So
Yeah.
so
And I ask because that testosterone result is just phenomenal. So,
yeah.
holy cow.
I wasn't sure like what would happen because I had gotten down to the 204. I got, I'm like, yay, I climbed my Mount Everest. I stayed there for a few weeks and then I kind of slowly climbed out. Because I was like, well, okay, at 220, maybe my testosterone went down a little bit because beforehand it was like 1349, so still pretty high, but I thought it would go down or something. And then, those two lab results came back and I was like, oh, maybe my body is telling me something different than what I'm thinking. So it says, keep doing this because, I noticed I had more energy. And the only way I can really corroborate that is, I vastly increased my step count. It used to be like 10,000 and then it was, 15,000 then. And then once I figured out I was undercounting on certain things, then it, jumped up to 20,000. So, but yeah, so it's been kind of eye-opening for me. And, I've been carnivore for, a little over 2 years. So it's still kind of a learning journey for me as it is for you guys, because I know, self-experimentation is, a big thing. Yeah, Hope was mentioning Amy Berger's video with Keto Without the Crazy. That's the one I was thinking of, and that seemed to be the message throughout a lot of the videos I saw this week was, finding your happy weight, I guess. So now I'm thinking like, well, where am I happiest? I have to take a broader view, right? So I got to, take account of energy levels, how I look in the mirror, how I fit into the clothes, what I'm able to do physically and mentally, my energy levels, hunger, that kind of stuff. And weight happens to be part of that. It's going to be in a certain range. So now I'm thinking, let me look at these other things in comparison and let me decide, from there where my weight is, because at 204, nothing magically happened. I didn't reverse my diabetes more. I didn't, reduce my blood pressure more, because I was already, at that stage, probably, a couple pounds ago. So, so now it's just kind of like, okay, where is that happy range that my weight happens to fall in? And then just kind of go from there, because, if I'm happy on an everyday, energetic on an everyday basis, I'm, even more likely going to stick to it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting when weight doesn't become the sole focus. And I know that happened for me as well. I didn't have a ton to lose, but weight was the reason I came to carnivore. And then now I've mentioned it's mostly mental health for me, mental health and energy. And wherever that lands, that is more important to me than being at my lowest weight.
Yeah.
Definitely more important.
Yeah, same.
But it's a different paradigm.
Yeah, it's definitely a paradigm shift. So, you know, even with me, when I take a look at the scale, if it's, below what I was expecting, yeah, it's gonna, I look at the rest of the day through rose-colored lenses, and if it's a little low, then the opposite happens. So it has a disproportionate influence on how I view myself and my day, and I'm trying to, I'm in the process of getting it to not have that disproportionate weight to it, pun intended, I guess. So
Yes.
I was just thinking, I mean, the weight loss was so significant. You're an accountant, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever calculated how many calories you burned just in body mass?
No, I never thought about it, but there sometimes when I do my exercises, I'll do certain things just to help me remind myself of what 200 pounds or whatever that weight loss looks like. So I'll do like farmer's carries, so like two 90-pound dumbbells for 180 pounds, or two 100-pound dumbbells, and just kind of do that. And I'm like, yep, that's really heavy. So because
That's some good grip strength you've got there to carry
yeah.
that.
Yeah, and sometimes at the gym they have a 175-pound tractor tire that I like to flip across the basketball court every once in a while too.
Just
So
one-handed, just like Hulk smash.
not one-handed, but yeah. So and it's made me realize that what I'm really after is that feeling of health. It's kind of, and it's more, health is more than just the absence of different medical diagnosis or the need for prescription medicines. It's also about your energy levels, your ability to live life more on your terms. It's about adding life to your years, right? So,
Absolutely.
and not only myself, but my family is also the beneficiary of that. Just kind of on a practical everyday level, things get done around the house that were never getting done when I was 200 pounds heavier. Clothes get done, dishes get done, trashes get thrown out. The dog gets walked, so she gets plenty of
The dog gets
exercise. I mean, she's so spoiled to the point now where she throws a fit if she doesn't get her 2 or 3 walks a day, even if it's raining outside. She's such a spoiled dog compared to my previous pets when I was not in great shape. So
Now, what about parents or siblings or extended family? Have they come to the dark side of the diet force?
unfortunately not, and that's the thing is, even when I was at my heaviest and I saw other people losing weight, it still didn't necessarily sink in with me because I just wasn't ready at that time. My rock bottom moment was, it wasn't when I received my type 2 diabetes diagnosis with an 6.8 A1C. It was when I had trouble putting on my own socks and shoes while sitting in the bed. For me, that was that intersection of an event and it being super meaningful for me. So, but even though my family hasn't, gone anything close to carnivore, just never discount the fact of who's watching, right? So my barber, who cuts my hair every 2-3 weeks, she went carnivore, not necessarily just because of me, but she realized she's getting older, and a lot of her friends in her church group were like succumbing to cancer and a lot of chronic diseases. And then I was one of the few carnivores in her life that she knew, and she's like, 3 other carnivores I know, they happen to be the happiest, healthiest people I know of. So then she jumped on board and has done pretty well herself. So so I just try to help people where they're at, and not hammer the carnivore gospel too much. And I remember your video about your 11 steps or 11 stages in carnivore being like one of the latter ones.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the similar approach that I take, because like when I go to some of these exercise classes, I think I can be there to support someone just by showing up, right? And everyone in the gym is on a health journey of their own, and a lot of it's a lot different than my own, but they're there to get healthy. They don't have to be there, but they choose to be there. So I just try to, I remember like your 11 steps, and I just try to meet people where they're at and try to be supportive in their health journey, wherever it is, even though it's, not carnivore, because, this feeling of healthy, I want people to get there, even if they don't get there through carnivore. There's no population limit on this healthy island that I want people to, join me in, right? So join us in.
Yeah. I love that. I think it was the Midditch Kilts video where she was saying that her mission was to spread the word about carnivore. Obviously, she has a YouTube channel as well. And she said that that is her goal. I mean, imagine if everyone was experiencing optimal baseline metabolic health was the term she used. And like you said, however you get there is fine, but just imagine a world.
In a world where everyone's healthy and no one has metabolic disorders.
Right.
Imagine the productivity
Right.
that would be unleashed.
Yep. Yeah.
It would definitely change the landscape of the economic landscape for sure. So, if you're not on subscription medicines and, eating all the addictive foods and whatnot.
So Sue says, congratulations, Charlie. You are an inspiration.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Simpson says, Charlie, I've been wanting to connect you with my son who is a Star Wars fan also. He needs carnivore so much. I need to get him off statins.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if Star Wars translates directly to carnivore, but it does with Darth Carnivore.
Yeah, I chose that name just because it was available and it seemed kind of memorable. And I was staking my identity in carnivore because it's been so transformative for me and continues to be transformative. And usually when when I explain to people, like, well, what do you eat every day? I was like, meat, eggs, salt only. And they'll kind of it'll process through their mind and be like, but you still eat like some vegetables and fruit too. And I'm like, no, just meat, eggs, salt only.
Well, I think you just answered.
I'll get a reaction like, you've definitely joined the dark side now.
Yeah. So Alan jokingly asked a question for Darth. What is your expert opinion regarding salad? Personally, I think it's toxic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a tough one to explain to folks. And I don't really have like a compelling reason. Like I wasn't suffering from, like IBS or anything like that, or had allergies to vegetables or fruit, but I just never liked it. It was kind of forced on me when I was a kid. So I think there was a lack of informed consent. There was only the benefits that were portrayed, as in like, hey, you need this, and then fiber is great for going to the bathroom and whatnot. But there was never any disclosure of hey, it could it has anti-nutrients in it that could reduce your ability to absorb what you think you're getting. So they're it's advertised as hey, it has all these polyphenols and antioxidants and all that stuff, but you may not be getting a lot of that depending on what else you're eating with it. So so I just didn't like it, and once I saw Dr. Chafee's plants are trying to kill you video, it planted the seed, so to speak.
Yeah. It's funny how that was really impactful for me when I first saw Chafee that plants are trying to kill you concept, because it was so contrary to just all the conventional wisdom and actually all wisdom. And yet he laid out a very compelling case for his view. And then it was almost like a permission to not eat my veggies.
Yeah.
And I felt like I needed to get that from somebody and to relax, so I didn't have to think, oh, I'm going to be deficient in all these magical plant compounds.
Right.
And instead turn it to be, I'm so glad I'm not being inundated with all these plant compounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. What, before you saw that video, what was your impression of what it would be about just based on, the thumbnail of the video? I'd be curious your perspective versus mine.
Well, I don't know that I knew who Chafee was before. I think that was my entree into his whole realm.
Yeah.
So I was like, how can someone say this? I think that was my attitude going in.
Yeah, and so I had a different. I didn't know who Dr. Chafee was either, but I saw the thumbnail and it was by a medical doctor. So I was thinking it was going to be like a comedy routine extolling the benefits of vegetables, just because
wow.
that's who would question the phytosanctity of vegetables, right? So, and the only other thing I had in my mind was there was an early 1990s cartoon series called Attack of the Killer Tomatoes,
Yes.
Oh.
which was kind of a farcical cartoon series, and of course tomatoes aren't trying to kill you and whatnot. But so that was my impression going into that was going to be like a doctor doing a comedy routine of, extolling the benefits of vegetables. So once I sat through it, it caught me off guard that A, he was serious, and then B, he actually made a lot of good points that I had never considered before. So
I will raise a point about doing things like that on YouTube. It's very dangerous.
The joke thing?
We've done some jokey videos. We did one where we played it straight, where we talked about carnivores being crazy. And a lot of carnivores got really mad at us because they didn't sense that it was a joke.
Yeah.
We needed a disclaimer, but
Yeah.
it would have had to be up the whole entire time.
But I didn't want to wreck the bit. I wanted to play it perfectly straight and let people figure it out. But that was expecting too much.
Yeah.
Well, when I first came to Chafee, Dr. Chafee, and carnivore in general, I had recently read a book on lectins. I had been somehow in my continual journey to try to regain or maintain any energy or hormonal balance that I had, I came across the whole lectin concept. So I had read that the previous spring.
Okay.
And I can't remember who was the author of the book, but it was a doctor, I think. And I was like, oh, that sort of was starting to pivot me a little bit. I already knew about gluten for me. And then, so I kind of was very intrigued by it after reading that.
Well, I was kind of open to it because I remember many years ago, Dave Asprey was popularizing the concern of oxalates in cruciferous vegetables. And he was saying you need to blanch your broccoli and your kale before you eat it because you're going to get inundated with oxalates. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. So I don't believe him.
Yeah.
Alan has another question. I was sunbathing today, and after cooling down in a shower, my wife gave me a hug and said that I'm hot. How should I perceive that? I think you should take it literally.
Absolutely.
However you want is what I say.
Oh, that's funny. Simpson, my dog and cat turned carnivore also when I turned, and my husband also has had to ask if something was human or animal food. Well, the dog doesn't see a difference.
No, except for 1 year of her 4-year life. She's always had meat essentially. So I plan to, kind of show what my dog and I eat, on carnivore too, because I don't know, it's kind of cool. So because a lot of times, and I didn't realize this when I was getting heavier, but your animals tend to get heavier or tend to follow you in terms of health. Not all the time, but usually. So my previous dog would get all the table scraps from going out to eat and stuff like that, and then I would just kind of wonder, it's like, wow, how did she get so big? And then not realizing I was also getting big too. So it Dr. Berry's concept of a proper human diet is kind of made me think, is like, well, what's a proper dog diet like? Is it really kibble? So
well, and
like
it's amazing.
doggy cereal. So
it's amazing on all of the pet food advertisements now. Most of the dogs are overweight.
Yeah, that's true.
On the advertisements. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the perception has just shifted so much that that's, again, normalized.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Well, Simpson agrees. Most wild animals are extremely lean, which would be their normal diet. So it makes sense not to add fat to their food. We had,
yeah.
when Lucky was alive, and we would make bacon, we would pour a little bacon juice on his kibble to make it just a little more delicious.
Yeah.
And he liked it, but then he got to a point where he was like, I just can't with all this fat. And he would
Yeah.
kind of turn his nose up. And I was like, what dog turns his nose up at bacon juice? But he knew instinctively.
Yeah.
Because what he really wanted was sweet potatoes.
He was a sweet potato bean.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Keisha says, so this is Darth.
Yep.
Melanie says, yes, it's about feeling and being healthy, being robust, living your best life.
Yes.
You are an inspiration.
Yeah.
Do you feel like an inspiration?
I hope so. So, and I have two thoughts about that. One is, when I did keto the first time and lost significant weight, I was an inspiration then, but then I kind of fell off the wagon. So I'm hoping, I think this time I figured it out. I figured out that I should try to moderate addictive things. I should just abstain from it. And that seems to have made that concept has made a lot of difference for me, because without that concept, you're just thinking like, okay, I know that carbs, are bad for you, but you can't help, but partake of it every once in a while. You just think that it's just weakness on your part, essentially, without that concept that, oh yeah, they make these foods so that they are addictive, because addiction is a great revenue model. They don't develop these foods to be like a one-off thing that it's like a bucket list item. So um, you never want to eat it again. So so I'm not opposed to eating something off carnivore, but it's going to have to be something pretty spectacular to make me want to trade off feeling awesome for an experience. I always kind of joke that if Gordon Ramsay wanted to show up to my house and cook a meal he's never made for anybody else from scratch that happens to be high in carbs and whatnot, I'm like, yeah, I will partake of that meal. But that's just kind of an example of because I feel really good. That's my starting point. So when I'm making decisions, it's always like, all right, I feel awesome now. I recognize that. Do I want to trade that off for anything? And the answer is usually no.
Yeah.
Unless you have one of these really weird situations, that's probably not going to happen unless it's like a Make-A-Wish Foundation type of wish, So
Well, this is really important, because you talk about how you feel awesome. Addicted to food never feels awesome.
yeah.
Never feels awesome. It feels awful. And the food is the only bright spot in the day. And that's not a vital life.
No.
But it's hard to see that until you get on the other side where you feel awesome, and then the food isn't that interesting.
Yeah. Yes, I've learned to, because I'm very like results oriented, right? So, part of me is like, okay, I got to get down to the 204, but then you also have to appreciate the everyday living process too, your lived experience, because that has to account for something, even beyond, lab results and all that stuff, because you could have perfect labs, but if you feel like crap, then, that you got to reckon with that at some point. If you're feeling awful on it, you've got to do something different so you can, get back to being healthy. Or in my case, I've never experienced health for very long, let alone, several, months or years in a row. So I've just learned to take some time every day to appreciate that, there's a saying that like a healthy person has 1,000 wishes and an unhealthy person has one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You listen to a lot of these carnivore health stories where people have lost health at different points and then they regain it, and kind of makes you think too. It's like, well, I better appreciate this for what it's worth. I definitely didn't appreciate it when I was younger because, they say that youth is wasted on the young, but
Yeah.
but I feel like I've kind of turned the clock a little bit. It's hard to see it here, but my hair when I was heavier used to be more salt than pepper, but now it is, far more pepper than salt.
Ooh.
So it's hard to tell under this lighting, but I feel, I don't know, like I'm not afraid to go out in the sun, even in the humidity, and do hard work and stuff. So it's just been a boon. Like, over the summer, I also won like a gardening award. Like the city stopped by, like the city has a secret, like, anonymous committee. And I thought when I saw this little placard hanging on my door, it was just, a person spraying, the weed killer and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Then I noticed, like, wow, this is really thick paper. What is this? And sure enough, it was a gardening award from the city. I had,
Wow.
it. So some of it feels like, okay, when you win the energy lottery, what do you do with that?
Yes.
Right? And I'm like, oh, how about I do some gardening here? Touch up some of these plants that are kind of underperforming. I'm gonna go replace them. And sure enough, that was enough for me to win my gardening award for the first time.
The other night, I was feeling so much energy. I was like, I'm gonna go out and weed. I'm not ready to sit yet. I need to go weed.
Yeah,
Flowers, not veggies.
And then combined with the fact that, with the simplified eating, so I'm not spending a whole lot of time at drive-throughs or trying to plan out, 20-step ingredient recipes or anything like that. You also have extra time combined with more energy. So, now I realize, okay, I've got to find more projects to do that are, productive. So, the dog gets walked, sometimes a little extra things get done around the house. Projects I've been meaning to do, all of a sudden become more tenable to want to do. So I don't know.
Alan says, comment for discussion. At 64 years old, my plan is to eat and exercise to stay outside the medical system. Chronic disease and obesity lead to even more problems within the medical pharma industry. And I mean, it's just like, they want addiction to food to get you to a subscription to a drug. It's just a continuum.
And I have a friend who had to go to her she has to go to the doctors a few times a year for all the medications she's on because they've got to see you in the office to keep the subscription going as well. So there's that piece of it that I hadn't really thought about before. So
yeah, when I was at my heaviest, that was the only time I went to the doctor was, when I got a notice saying that, hey, doctor needs to see you in order to refill your high blood pressure medicine.
Yep.
So I would, begrudgingly go for that. So there's another YouTuber I've been listening to. It's Dr. Sam Hy, Hy. He's a internal medicine doctor, and he talked about recently where carnivore is almost like an act of rebellion when you think about like a triad of, big food, big pharma, big agriculture and stuff like that. I was like, wow, I never thought about it like that. But yeah, there's a sense of freedom in rebelling against that because I'm, a very poor customer now for all three of those industries.
Yes.
So, but yeah.
Yeah, I was chatting with Grok today about some supplements that I was thinking about, and it kept giving me a disclaimer. I am not a doctor. Consult with your doctor. And I said, Grok, no doctor knows anything about supplements. And it said, you're absolutely right. Check with your doctor. Oh, okay. Sue says, Charlie, your chair behind you does resemble Darth Vader's hood.
It kind of does. So yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Michelle says high fat, not for dogs, because that can give them pancreatitis.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I did not know that. Going back over 30 years, all our pets fed kibble ended up with cancer. Our last 3 to 4 dogs and cats have been on raw meat, and they have thrived.
Yeah.
And Scotter says, Eric, your hair looks darker too. That's because of wounds on my head from some projects I was doing.
Which have healed incredibly
That's
quickly.
carnivore.
I'm pretty sure.
Heals you up because you get plenty of protein.
Mhm.
Simpson says doctors' offices and hospitals are pathogen factories. Best to stay away from them. But that is true. Hospitals, infectious diseases take out people all the time.
Yeah.
Cheap shot. I love bald jokes. Ever since my daughter, when she was like 3, rubbed my head and said, "Little ball, little ball." Oh, that's so funny. So your YouTube channel is live, but you have not published anything yet. When do you think people are going to be able to see something go live?
Hopefully by the end of no later than the end of next week. So
Okay.
I've been, you can go down the rabbit hole on a lot of this stuff, and I certainly have. So,
well, we're really looking forward to it. The trick is publish often, and then eventually you'll feel like I can't do it at that pace anymore, and you'll slow down like we did.
Yeah, because I have a full-time job too, and I'm trying to figure out what is that balance, right? Because I'm not looking at this as a source of income or anything. It's just primarily, I want to help spread the message, provide another N equals 1 out there, especially. I'm not like someone that just started the carnivore diet 30 days ago, and and I like those channels too, but I'm someone that's been on it for a while, and we'll see where it goes from there. Hopefully it helps someone else out that might be in a similar situation. So
yeah, and I think your past history with keto and your motivations for doing the diet and just the incredible physical and health transformation you've seen are all just really, really important parts of the whole carnivore story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's a learning journey too. I plan to go over some of my lab results too. I think that might be kind of interesting to see that progression. So, because at my heaviest at 410 pounds was also my best cholesterol. So I don't know, my best LDL-C cholesterols always occur when I'm like morbidly obese. I've noticed. So.
Great.
Oh my.
Yep.
Scudder says, Eric and JJ, I'm Sue's husband. Please don't hold anything I say against her. Ellen says, congratulations, Charlie. Keep going, brother carnivore. You will help hundreds. And Simpson has a question for you. How long have you been carnivore?
Since June of 2023, so a little over 2 years. And the way I celebrated my 2-year carniversary was I went to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. I bought like a metal candle holder that would hold a candle. So I had them bring out my tomahawk ribeye with a 2 candle on it, and I blew that out. I did not share the steak with my wife, unfortunately. So she decided against that. So I'm trying to come up with different traditions for celebrations and stuff. So I mean, that's just kind of something I came up with to celebrate my carniversary. Every once in a while, if like I said, if the prices are good, I celebrate at the end of the week with a steak that I just make in the air fryer. So just trying to come up with alternative means of celebrating with foods that don't sabotage you, basically. So
yep.
I love it. I think that's a good place to end it.
I think so too.
Well, thank you so much, Charlie, for joining us. We'll be watching your YouTube channel.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me back.
Yeah,
and hopefully I'll see you guys. Are you guys going to Low Carb for Better Health in September?
That is unknown.
Okay.
So I guess we're going to do our usual sign off, Charlie.
Thanks so much. It was good to see you.
Every
and thank
day,
you to everyone.
Every day stronger.
Every day more blessed.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
JJ and Eric, their lipids are high. Their doctors are worried they're both gonna die. Is LDL harmless? They sure hope it's so. It's the JJ and Eric Carnivore Show. Salad is toxic. See Meat oils are doom. They rub on tallow like greasy perfume. Ribeyes and bacon, that's all they know. It's the JJ and Eric Carnivore Show. No wheat, no kale, they're laughing at greens. 18-hour fasts are their favorite routines. Sugars for suckers, they're chomping on fat. Streaming to you live from a tallow fat. Eric's got muscles, JJ's got zen. They're coming to chat with their carnivore friends. So toss out the lettuce, embrace the beef glow. It's the JJ and Eric